Groundbreaking, challenging, thought-provoking. Documentaries are a tribute to human curiosity, the meaning of art and journalism. They take us places we've never been and show us things we've never seen, whether we're ready to see them or not. And sometimes they can even change the world, because they're not just films, they're real.
Welcome to a celebration of that reality. To honor this rebellious, confrontational, and sometimes messy art form, we assembled some of the finest minds in the documentary world to help us count down through the must-see movies of the past 2 decades.
From the plains of Antarctica to the skyscrapers of New York, from fast food to family fallout, from Enron to Donkey Kong, these are the 50 documentaries to see before you die. Welcome back to my road trip through documentaries. If you're only just joining us, then you've tuned into the right episode as we reveal the final top 10 must-see documentaries. Over the course of this series, I've traveled all over the country meeting some true doc icons, both the filmmakers themselves and the subjects that made their films so compelling. We've been to Florida, Pennsylvania, Missouri, California, and here I am in the Great Lakes on my way to Chicago for our final rendezvous to revisit a film that inspired a nation. But first, let's get things started with the first entry in our top 10, a first-person account of one man's fascinating life, and also, tragically, his death.
I'm out in the prime cut of the Big Green. Behind me is Ed and Rowdy, members of an up-and-coming sub-adult gang. They're challenging everything, including me. If I show weakness, if I retreat, I may be hurt, I may be killed. But so far, I persevere.
Timothy Treadwell had spent 13 summers living with the Bears. For the final 5 seasons, he took a camera with him, filming more than 100 hours of his extraordinary life in the wild. Tragically, and some would say inevitably, Treadwell was killed in a bear attack before he could complete his project. However, his material was discovered by renowned filmmaker Werner Herzog, who turned it into number 10 on our list, Grizzly Man.
It's July 26th. I hope to survive and to be able to record the secret world of the bears. And then come September, when people might come to harm these animals, I'll look after them. I'll make sure they're safe.
Timothy Treadwell was this larger-than-life, kind of giddy, overgrown kid.
Oh, he's a big bear. He's a big bear. A very big bear.
There was a beauty to his view of the world and his connection and relationship to it.
Exploring the material, Herzog discovered that Treadwell was not simply filming an observational nature documentary, but crafting his own persona as the valiant crusader and protector of the bears.
Be warned. I will die for these animals. I will die for these animals. I will die for these animals.
Through his distinctive narration, Herzog revealed the complexity of Treadwell's character, his mix of childish innocence and increasing paranoia.
There were visitors every now and then, but for Treadwell, they were just intruders.
I beat your asses. I protected the animals. I did it. You.
For me, he is a fascinating but deeply flawed individual. Clearly, this is a tragedy, but I think the tragedy, to an extent, had maybe started long before, you know, the rather bloody conclusion of Timothy Treadwell's life.
I was troubled. I drank a lot, and it was killing me until I discovered this land of bears.
It plays very much on that idea that we all have, that nature is intrinsically majestic and that there's a nobility in nature, and Werner Herzog sort of sees straight through that.
What haunts me is that in all the faces of all the bears that Treadwell ever filmed, I discover no kinship, no understanding, no mercy. I see only the overwhelming indifference of nature.
Thank you so much for letting me do this. Thank you so much for these animals, for giving me a life. I had no life. Now I have a life.
Filmmakers Carl Deal and Tia Lesson were looking for a new angle on Hurricane Katrina and the devastation it caused. When they stumbled across Kimberly Roberts, they discovered that new perspective.
All the footage I seen on TV, nobody ain't got what I got. Yeah. I got right there in the hurricane.
The main characters had just happened to buy a video camera 2 or 3 days before Hurricane Katrina struck.
It's a very visceral experience. It almost plays like a found footage horror movie.
Put on the news that we should get out, but they got those people that just can't leave like me. Not because we ain't want to, but with the luxury.
She's got these shots. She's got the footage. She's got what it was like.
Oh, Jesus! This is my face. After just opening my back door. We're going to plan B, and plan B is we about to start stacking our furniture or try to get to the roof.
As much as you think you know going into a film like this, you don't know nothing until you see it from the first-hand experience.
So the police is not coming out until the weather conditions get better. So I'm gonna die. Hello? Yeah. I can't get out.
The story follows Kimberly and her family through the storm, its aftermath, and into their uncertain future. Going beyond the politics and the recriminations, the film discovers a human story of hope and redemption.
Kim was the only one in the midst of all our sorrows that saved us. She's a wonderful, blessed person. She loved the Lord.
Y'all should have known me before the storm.
It has that angle of everything has to be destroyed in order to start over.
The way I was going in New Orleans, it was either going to be in jail or under the ground. I want to start my life all over. I want to see how it is to do it right from the beginning.
As the characters look to life beyond Katrina, they decide to stay in New Orleans and rebuild their broken city.
It's our home, our food, our neighbors, our problems.
The film becomes a tribute to the strength of the human spirit. Across our list, we've seen that great documentary material can come from many sources, but only one began its life as a slideshow presentation.
I was not convinced at all that it could be a documentary movie.
Whoever would have thought that a PowerPoint presentation would turn into an Oscar-winning documentary?
During his long career as a politician, Al Gore had taken a lot of flack in the press over his lack of communication skills. Key to getting his environmental message across turned out to be simple: practice, and lots of it.
After a while, over maybe 1,000 different slideshows, it really began to connect with the audiences I presented it to. I know that I'm not the most compelling presenter, but after 1,000 times, you get better at it.
In the audience for one of those many presentations was director Davis Guggenheim. Inspired by what he heard, Davis set out to take the message to the masses on the big screen.
If this were to go, sea level worldwide would go up 20 feet.
The part that I sort of still carries with me is all those before and after shots where you see, here's a glacier and here's what's left of the glacier, you know, and when you see just things sort of disappearing or things becoming desert when they used to be soil, it's kind of hard to argue that.
An Inconvenient Truth is now part of the secondary school curriculum in 5 countries. And in the 5 years since its release, more than 2,600 professionally trained speakers have delivered the same PowerPoint presentation to more than 4 million people on all 7 continents.
I had hopes, but honestly, I did not predict or expect the overwhelming response to it.
All of a sudden, people are actually paying attention.
Of course, An Inconvenient Truth had its detractors as well. And climate control remains a divisive issue, particularly in American politics.
Even though quite a few governments appear to be paralyzed on the issue, including the U.S. government, tragically, at the grassroots level, all over the world, there is a powerful wave of change. You now see companies in every part of the economy advertising that they are greener than their competition. You see the progressive introduction of more and more renewable energy technologies, efficiency improvements. Gradually, step by step, we are getting to the point where we will have enough political will to make these changes. No one can say we can completely get away from this problem, but we can avoid the worst of it. And the worst of it must be avoided.
The Celluloid Closet explores the representation of gays and lesbians over 100 years of cinema. The documentary combines Hollywood insider interviews with classic movie clips to show that although homosexuality was banned from the screen for much of the 20th century, in the movies, as in life, it had been there all along.
It's a good-looking gun you were about to use back there. Can I see it? Maybe you'd like to see mine.
At that point in time, the majority of gay people were living very secretive, closeted lives. So we were living in the closet, and the movies were living in the closet.
I think that the Celluloid Closet really made people look at revered, beloved Hollywood classics in a new way.
What position have we, I wonder, for a boy of such varied gifts?
The most talked about scene, even today, is when Gore Vidal tells us that Ben-Hur was shot essentially as a gay love story.
Then you see that scene of Ben-Hur where they're toasting each other, and Stephen Boyd is just giving him that look. It's a whole new read on that film.
Directors Rob Epstein and Jeffrey Friedman enlisted the Hollywood elite, both gay and straight, to examine not only the depiction of homosexuality through the years, but also the impact those depictions had on audiences.
There are lots of needs for art. The greatest one is the mirror of our own lives and our own existence. And that hunger that I felt as a kid looking for gay images was to not be alone.
Too often, it seemed, cinemagoers looking to the silver screen for images of hope and acceptance were instead greeted by anything but.
I've got to tell you, I can't keep it to myself any longer. I'm guilty.
Gays either disappeared or they became twisted, destructive villains.
And inevitably, that person would meet some horrible end as a metaphor for how bad it would be to be gay.
By piecing together decades of breakdowns, suicides, and murders, the Celluloid Closet revealed the message Hollywood had been sending to gay audiences.
It entertainingly proves that knot in your stomach that you grew up with if you're my age and you're gay, that if I let anything show of my real self, a tree would fall on me. You can't see the Celluloid Closet and think that you just got that idea from nowhere, that, you know, God or the Bible was telling you this. No, Hollywood was telling you.
The Celluloid Closet was a complete wake-up call. I hadn't realized how we had been depicted over the past 100 years, and when you see those images strung together back to back, it makes you angry.
If we could just not hate ourselves so much. That's it, you know.
Society, of course, changes with time, and so too does Hollywood. Sometimes that change comes rapidly.
The gates are open now, and once the gates are open, that's fertile territory, that's fertile ground. That's when things will really start changing.
Coming up after the break, behind the scenes at the Clinton campaign, and one very unhealthy attempt to take on the fast food giants.
Hi, I'm Morgan Spurlock, and you're watching 50 Documentaries to See Before You Die on Current TV. For more information about the movies on our list, log on to current.com/docs. Hey, I'm Morgan Spurlock. Thanks for joining me on 50 Documentaries to See Before You Die. We are still driving through a constantly shifting weather pattern here in Illinois, but we are in the home stretch, the final pass of our countdown of the most important, revolutionary, world-changing documentaries of the past 25 years. Up next, a film from the legend himself, D.A. Pennebaker. A look inside the 1992 presidential election campaign of a then unknown Arkansas governor, all the people that he surrounded himself with, and the mastering of a new media age.
The War Room takes viewers into the heart of the political machine. Award-winning documentarian D.A. Pennebaker was granted unprecedented access to the team behind Bill Clinton's historic bid for the White House, revealing a world of tactics, spin, and breakneck media maneuvers.
Can you all have Marla come up to the War Room on the 13th floor? Thanks.
The War Room was mission control for the Clinton campaign, an open office at the center of the headquarters in Little Rock, Arkansas. The filmmakers had great access, but what they needed were great characters.
Henny, Chris, take one.
We spent a day or two filming people who were so boring, I couldn't imagine how we were going to make a film with them. And then one day we were sitting in a room, and this guy, he just began performing, and I said, whoever he is, I'm going to film him because he's the first interesting person we've really seen here.
Somebody who's been through a lot of tough elections is James Carville, who's known as the Raging Cajun in the business.
The filmmakers didn't know it, but they were looking at Clinton's campaign manager, the political motor mouth, James Carville.
I am so goddamn tired of this goddamn double standards where the press lets these sons of bitches get away with murder. Every little thing that we do, Clinton's numbers don't add up. Clinton's numbers don't add up.
Hi, how are you?
In contrast to Carville's fireworks, the War Room also chronicled the rise of George Stephanopoulos, Bill Clinton's young communications director.
We're not going to lose. We are going to win. He is going to be president.
Carville and Stephanopoulos, they were like the Lennon and McCartney of politics in that particular time frame.
But rather than songs, Carville and Stephanopoulos were writing political history, skillfully navigating the new era of the 24-hour cable news cycle.
None of us had seen the waging of a presidential campaign ever in that way.
Bush was on the defensive. Keep repeating, Bush was on the defensive all night. It's the economy, stupid.
I think it's a film about politics, but not a political film. We always think of it really as a buddy story.
The War Room is, a classic example of cinema verite, of, capturing things as they happen, being a so-called fly on the wall, privy to things that, most people wouldn't otherwise get to see, and Pennebaker, this is his forte.
After many months of filming, the War Room staff seemed to forget that their every conversation was being recorded.
People with cameras are sort of viewed as press, but press weren't allowed in the War Room. But our cameras don't really look very serious.
Read it to me. Well, what is names, address? I can send you a fax with names, addresses, phone numbers of who you had an affair with. It wouldn't make it true. I guarantee you that if you do this, you'll never work in Democratic politics again.
For a lot of people, maybe they went to a Yankees game and that made them want to be a baseball player. This film, The War Room, made people want to be political consultants.
Finally, I want to thank the members of my brilliant, aggressive, unconventional, but always winning campaign staff.
It's a fantastic documentary. It's one of my favorites, and you should check it out.
All right, the next film on our list, I just want you to know, I had nothing to do with putting it here, but I do think it's pretty good.
Hello, may I help you?
Yeah, could I get the double quarter pounder with cheese meal?
Large or supersize?
I think I'm gonna have to go supersize.
You can say the word supersize me and everyone knows what you're talking about immediately.
I need the McDonald's Texas Homestyle Burger meal, please.
Would you like to supersize it tonight?
Oh, yes, I would.
Eating McDonald's and nothing else for 30 days is a great what if. You just don't think that someone's actually going to put themselves through it. And he does.
I grew up in a household where we never got to eat fast food. So now here I was, as an adult man, I get to have all I want. I get to eat it nonstop. In the beginning, it was awesome. Yeah. For a whole day.
Supersize Me is a risky venture in that it might not have worked as a film, or he might have destroyed his kidneys.
I've started to have like some chest, not chest pains, but like pressure. You know, I feel like I got pressure on my chest. The doctors didn't think anything big was gonna happen. They were all like, well, maybe you'll gain some weight. Maybe your cholesterol will go up a little bit. You know, maybe your blood pressure a tiny bit. He goes, but not much is gonna happen.
I woke up, couldn't breathe. Felt like I was having heart palpitations.
My doctor in the film, the South African doctor, he's like, Morgan, you've got to stop. You've got to stop. I don't know what's going to happen to you. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. It's very exciting, but you have to stop.
You saw these numbers, right? You're giving yourself hyperuricemia. The results for your liver are obscene beyond anything I would have thought.
I felt terrible. I was exhausted. I was depressed all the time. Like, I'd eat the food and I'd really like wake up and get like a jolt, and then I'd crash again and be like just emotionally wrought. You know, my vegan girlfriend, she didn't think it was a very good idea.
I think in general he was pretty unflinching about showing every aspect of himself and his personality, his experience.
I think the saturated fats are starting to impede the blood flow to his penis.
I don't think Morgan Spurlock ever thought in his wildest dreams that his little movie would change the McDonald's menu forever, but it did.
McDonald's takes supersizing off of its menu. You can't tell me that film didn't have an effect.
Should people eat fast food?
No. You know this. The answer is no.
I have not had a Big Mac. I haven't had a fry. I haven't had those awful McRibs that literally have black paint painted on them to look like where they were pushed on a grill. I haven't had any of that crap, and neither should you.
Stay with me after the break as we move ever closer to our #1 documentary to see before you die.
Welcome back to The Countdown. I'm Morgan Spurlock, on the road to Chicago to meet the director and stars of one of the greatest documentaries of all time. But before we get there, we're going to reveal a few more greats to you, like our next film, a film that uses revolutionary animation techniques to tell its story, but it's the subject of that story that's unlike anything else on The Countdown. It's one man on a mission to rediscover his own memories.
Waltz with Bashir is an animated documentary. And some might say, what? Huh? How could that be? But it is.
Filmmaker Ari Folman was a 19-year-old soldier in the Israeli army when his country went to war with Lebanon in 1982.
Our nerves were so tight. We just started firing away like madmen.
More than 20 years later, Folman realized that parts of his wartime experience had disappeared from his memory.
Is it even possible that I can't remember such a dramatic event?
We call them dissociative events. It's when a person experiences a situation and yet they perceive themselves as outside of it.
The audio from the film came from real conversations, interviews that the director had done. Many times in documentary, you're struggling with that, like, well, I have a great story to tell, but I don't want to tell a talking head documentary about war. I want you to feel what it's like to be putting together the pieces from a war experience that you don't quite understand.
The result of Folman's attempts to recover those memories is one of the most groundbreaking and breathtaking documentaries on our list.
The animation in the film is extraordinarily well done, and it feels like a real documentary. The power of the testimony in that film feels so authentic, but also it was about something really important. It was about war, and it felt to me it caught the chaos of war and the fear of war.
These were good people. These were essentially moral young men and women who were put in indefensible and impossible positions in which not only were they in the line of fire and saw their comrades fall, but they were also potentially at least complicit to a terrible massacre. What does it do to experience that kind of trauma? Well, we know that what it does to memory is that it makes it inaccessible to us because it's too painful. Animation is the perfect vehicle for dealing with this incomplete or partial memory.
It's an extraordinary opening up of the filmmaker's own mind. It's a study of denial.
What does the sea symbolize in dreams?
What?
Fear. Your only way to resolve this issue is to find out what really happened.
I admire it not just for its stylistic boldness, but for the fact that it's an incredibly powerful story.
It defies categorization. It is what it is, and it's brilliant.
Michael Moore, one.
I never really liked documentaries. Growing up, they always seemed like medicine.
Roger and Me brought Michael Moore to the attention of the world. His documentary debut focused on his childhood home of Flint, Michigan, the birthplace of General Motors, now devastated by crippling unemployment after the sudden closure of many GM plants. The documentary chronicles Moore's quest to interview GM CEO Roger Smith to ask him why this had happened at a time when the company was making such huge profits.
Where are you guys going?
We're going up to the 14th floor.
Do you have an appointment?
No, we're going to try and see Roger Smith.
No, you're not.
Roger and Me kind of announced the Michael Moore brand very clearly to the world.
To have this fat guy in the baseball cap, you know, walking into General Motors headquarters with his camera and just sort of like, oh, we can't talk to the president of General Motors. I mean, you had to sort of love that.
Since Roger Smith was proving a tough man to track down, Moore decided to spend some time in Flint to hear about plans to revitalize the town's crumbling economy.
You don't usually think of tourist attraction when you think of Flint, but people here in Flint would like to change that. Flint officials would like to see the local tourist economy explode.
I had a very hard time raising any money because I would tell people, well, you see the film, it's about a dying auto town, but it's funny.
Jackie, what are some of the things that visitors ask us here?
First off, where is the bathroom? That's the question I get asked most.
Michael Moore bounces back and forth from really ridiculous to really serious. It's a very, very specific talent to be able to do that.
Today, we are announcing the closing of 11 of our older plants.
I'm sure that Roger Smith thought he would be remembered as a king of industry, as a corporate titan. But what he's really known for today is the star of Roger and Me.
Half of Flint was now receiving some form of government welfare. Meanwhile, Roger Smith gave himself a $2 million raise.
So I say, God bless Christmas, and God bless all of you.
The smart thing would have been to give me an interview and to bring me up to his office and sit me down and talk to me, but that didn't happen.
Mr. Smith, we just came down from Flint where we filmed a family being evicted from their home the day before Christmas Eve, a family that used to work in the factory. Could you come up to Flint with us?
I cannot come to Flint, I'm sorry.
Roger and Me struck a chord with both critics and audiences, bringing in an unprecedented $7 million at the box office and leaving audiences both entertained and enraged.
Deep down, I knew while I was making it that if I could just get this to an audience, I knew people would respond to it because they were feeling it themselves.
The film brought documentaries into the limelight, but for Michael Moore, it was just the first step in an illustrious career, an ongoing campaign to challenge the wealthy and powerful, using the camera not just to observe and document, but to confront and expose.
The idea of going in there and trying to expose the corridors of power, I really just stole that from The Wizard of Oz. They filmed Toto pulling back the curtain. You know, it's just a little mangy dog that revealed that the big bad Wizard of Oz, this thing you're so afraid of, General Motors, corporate America, political power, billionaires, all of that, they're really just little men behind the curtain trying to pull strings and levers. There's just a handful of them, and there's billions of us. And we really hold the power.
Roger and Me was the film that introduced Michael Moore to the world and defined his signature style. Since then, he's gone on to tackle gun control, healthcare, the Bush administration, even capitalism itself. Love him or hate him, no one has brought bigger audiences to documentaries than him. For 5 episodes, we've been celebrating films that challenged ideals, changed perspectives, and compelled us to act. But the next film on our list actually changed the course of justice, in the process made history, and more importantly, actually altered the art form of documentary itself. A true game changer in every sense of the word, this is a film that dared to cross the thin blue line.
The world has no shortage of true crime films. However, not many can claim to have saved a man from a life behind bars. The Thin Blue Line recreates the events of November 28, 1976, when Dallas police officer Robert Wood was shot dead during a routine traffic stop. A young drifter, Randall Dale Adams, was accused, arrested, and found guilty of committing the murder. After a last-minute reprieve from the electric chair, he was sentenced to life in prison. 10 years later, struggling director Errol Morris came across his story.
Errol Morris, take 2.
Randall Adams says to me, I didn't do it. He kept talking about the kid, the kid, the kid, the kid. Did I believe him? No. But I started slowly at first and then obsessively working on this case.
To pay the bills between his documentary projects, Morris had been working as a freelance private detective. Using the same skills, he got to work reassessing the case against Randall Adams.
3 people testified and identified him positively as being the driver at the time that Woods was walking up right beside the car.
That was a closed case, Thin Blue Line, and Errol Morris pried the lid off that can.
This eyewitness, Emily Miller, on the stand, that's the man who was driving the car. That's the man who shot the Dallas police officer. I get her in front of my camera. She tells me that she failed to pick the defendant out in a police lineup. I ask her, oh, how do you know? She says, I know because the policeman sitting next to me told me I picked out the wrong man and then pointed out the right man so I wouldn't make that mistake again.
Morris uncovered a tangled web of inconsistent testimony, timing that didn't add up, and witnesses mysteriously changing their accounts. He began to believe there had been a terrible miscarriage of justice and that someone had got away with murder.
Would you say that Adams is a pretty unlucky fellow? Definitely. Heard of the proverbial scapegoat.
Morris was assembling a solid case, but he needed to find a way to present it convincingly. At the time, documentary filmmaking was all about playing it straight and factual. Actuality footage, natural lighting, and one central commandment.
No reenactments. Reenactments are very, very, very naughty. I like breaking the rules.
Questioning the very essence of documentary, Morris explored truth by presenting fiction.
What I like to do is to focus on the evidence. My favorite reenactment in the Thin Blue Line, the milkshake. One of the central pieces of evidence was the policewoman's testimony. They had just stopped at a Burger King. She had gotten a milkshake when this car comes by without headlights. Routine procedure. Driver gets out, partner gets out, stands at the back of the car, should be able to look directly in that back window. She claims she saw who was in that car, but did she even get out of the car? What would you imagine that she would do with the milkshake? She would put the milkshake down in the car. Now imagine she didn't get out of the car until the shooting occurred. She would toss that goddamn milkshake out the window. It's to make you think about what that policewoman did or didn't do. It's the detective part of me. If I had shot the Thin Blue Line with a handheld camera and avoided all reenactments, it wouldn't be one smidgen more or less truthful. Truth, to the extent that we can ever grab a hold of it, is the product of a lot of hard work and investigation.
Errol Morris was probably the first person to make that breakthrough that you can actually go and watch a documentary and it to be a cinematic experience, something you can sit in a theater and happily watch.
And I remember when the movie opened in Manhattan, there were lines around the block.
The film generated a huge public outcry. Under the media spotlight, the case was reopened.
The evidence that I'd accumulated over 2.5 years was brought into federal and state court. The conviction was overturned. Randall Adams walked.
Is he innocent? I'm sure he is. How can you be sure? I'm the one that knows.
Without the movie, I think he would still be sitting in one of those small cells in the Texas Department of Corrections. I am never, ever in my life going to do anything really quite comparable to that.
Stay with us after the break when we reveal our #1 documentary to see before you die.
Well, it's time to finally reveal the #1 documentary to see before you die. Have you guessed it yet? Do you know what it is? Come on, I mean, what else could it be, really?
I want to play in the NBA. Like, that's something I think about all the time, you know, playing in the NBA.
Hoop Dreams begins in the playground with 2 teenagers and a basket full of talent and ambition. While playing on their local court, William Gates and Arthur Agee are spotted by a talent scout, recruiting for the basketball team of private school St. Joseph's.
I will be going to a school with different kids, different races.
Is it kind of scary?
Yes, it is.
Steve James, the director of Hoop Dreams, didn't know where these stories would go. How could he have any concept of how rich their stories would be and how many obstacles they would come across and how complex it would become? He took a total leap of faith. For a lot of these guys, it's their only way out of this crushing poverty that they've been born into. I can't imagine the kind of pressure that puts on you from a very early age to try and make this statistically impossible thing happen.
It gives me a great pleasure to introduce you a graduate of St. Joe's, 5-time NBA All-Star, Isaiah Thomas.
But for William, it isn't only the footsteps of Isaiah that lead the way. His older brother, Curtis Gates, also had talent. Curtis was widely tipped for a career in the NBA before his dream sadly slipped away.
Sometimes I just sit around and my eyes just kind of get watery because I be like, I ain't amounting to nothing. I can't even go out there and get a job making $7 an hour, you know.
I really thought Curtis was going to make it, but he didn't make it, so I just wanted this one to make it.
As they begin training at St. Joseph's, it seems William and Arthur are edging ever closer and closer to fulfilling their ambitions.
I want to give you an opportunity to maybe someday be one of those guys that goes out and makes some money in the NBA.
But as the high school league approaches, they realize that dreams don't come easy.
He was telling me about certain money my mama had to pay for me to stay in school, and they said, if she don't have it by this time, you gotta stay out.
He's not making it like they thought he was gonna make it on the basketball court, so he's not there. Simple as that.
It's the definitive look inside the business behind basketball.
These young people become pawns.
You've got these 12-year-old kids who are already being hovered over by these guys who want to nurture or exploit, however you want to look at it, their careers later on.
It's already become a meat market, but I try to do my job, and serve professional meat.
Hoop Dreams is a journey. It's a life journey.
It took years to make that film.
You care about every step of the way these guys take.
You couldn't have written that narrative more potently, and yet it was real.
Another one walks out the door, and another one comes in the door. That's what it's all about.
Life throws curves.
You want them to win. It's a success story. All the movies I see about basketball, they make the shot at the last second. And then you're like, they wouldn't make a documentary if they lost, would they?
Truth really is stranger than fiction. And if you did it in a narrative movie, no one would believe it.
Hoop Dreams is heartbreaking. It's gorgeous.
I don't think ever since or before I've ever seen any film that gripped me quite in the way that film did.
You could ask 100 film critics, do you like Hoop Dreams? And you would get 100 yeses. Everybody knows it's an extraordinary piece of work.
Throughout this series, I've been traveling all across America, meeting some of the most iconic characters from over 25 years of documentary cinema. And my journey has ended here, in Chicago, where I'm about to meet the director and stars of our #1 film, Hoop Dreams. Director Steve James has invited myself, William, and Arthur over to his place for some dinner and a little catch-up time. And we are here.
Morgan.
Mr. James, how are you, man?
Always good to see you.
Good to see you. There they are.
Gentlemen.
Oh, wow. How are you? It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. Like I just saw you guys. I want to pick up where the movie left off. What happened to your guys' life when the film came out?
Crazy things. Yeah. People knocking on your door. Hey, is that you? It was like the movie
had put us in a different place than the NBA.
Yeah.
But the place was good. I mean,
how did you end up picking William and Arthur out of all the kids?
It really started the way you see it in the movie. We were out with Big Earl Smith, who knew every court in the city.
Yeah.
He saw Arthur and was like, ooh, you know, who's this kid? Yeah.
I told my mom, I said, hey, they want to do a movie about me. She was like, boy, stop playing. Nobody come to make no movie about you. Because the only time white guys coming in row houses and Cabrini Green was when they coming to get somebody.
When we were making it, people were like, well, what if they don't make it to the pros? And it was like, you know what? It's not about whether they make it to the pros. When people watch the movie, they go back and forth trying to decide whether it's good for these guys to have had that dream or whether it's bad. And I think it isn't easy. It's complicated.
But that's the thing, is it's not just your guys' dreams, but in the film it's your guys' dreams, it's coach's dreams, it's your dad's dream, it's your brother's dream. You're it. You guys are going to help us change everything. There's a lot riding on that.
I felt that pressure early on. I felt the weight of having to be the one to be successful, not just for myself, but my entire family.
Yeah, right.
You know,
to not be Curtis.
But actually, to be Curtis.
But Curtis that makes it.
But the Curtis that made it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna fulfill both of our dreams, 2 in 1. I think when Curtis died, it's probably one of the most devastating days in my life. And, you know, I think about Curtis' kids, you know. His wife, Beatrice, had called us over and said, you know, if you guys want to get into this stuff, you know, we can come and get whatever you want. And I remember grabbing a pair of shoes, and I put them on, and they were too big. And I knew then that I'd never be able to fill Curtis's shoes, that I had to be what I needed to be.
Yeah.
It took his death for me to understand that.
It's such an incredible film, and with your two guys' stories, and you are the #1 film on the current TV 50 Docs to See Before You Die list.
Is that right?
Wow. Yeah.
Serious?
So you guys are the #1 movie.
Wow.
So congratulations.
Does that mean they pick up the pizza?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Al Gore, for this wonderful pizza.
Yes. Kids gonna enjoy this tonight. Let me start packing this up now before y'all get hungry again. I got grown boys.
So there you have it. That's the end of our list, the end of our show, and the end of our 50 documentaries that you should see before you die. I know you may not agree with all of them on the list, so why don't you go get all self-righteous on it? Go to some social networking site, tell everybody what you really feel. But what I hope is that you were somehow inspired by the independent spirit of filmmaking. You'll actually go check out some of these amazing movies. You know, in a world that's so often devoid of intelligent filmmaking, thank God there's documentaries out there to educate, entertain, and inform us. But now, it's time for a tacky montage to end this incredible special. Good night.
Reality just has more power and is more strange than anything you could make in a fiction film.
Whoa, Jesus Christ.
You always have to tell your friend about a good documentary. Loan him the DVD knowing he'll break it and scratch it and not get it back. Just make the donation to your friend or buy 3 copies. You should do this.